There is a symbol you have seen 1,000 times and never once questioned. A staff wrapped by twin serpents, crowned with wings, printed on hospitals, worn by healers, carried by gods. To the modern world, it is a medical logo. To the ancients, it was a map of the cosmos and the human soul. This is the Caduceus, the staff of Hermes Trismegistus, messenger of the gods, patron of alchemists, keeper of forbidden knowledge. But the real meaning of the Caduceus has nothing to do with medicine, and everything to do with power, polarity, and spiritual ascent. The ancients believed that the world is built in pairs, light and shadow, spirit and matter, above and below. The two serpents are not enemies. They are opposites in motion, winding in perfect equilibrium around the axis of the world. Where they cross, energy ignites. Where they unite, transformation begins. Behind every mystic tradition, from Egyptian priesthood to Indian tantra, there runs the same whisper, that the human body contains a hidden current of divine fire, a sleeping force, coiled like a serpent at the base of the spine. Those who learned to raise it became more than human. They became intermediaries between realms, masters of thought, will, and destiny. The Caduceus is not a symbol of healing. It is a symbol of awakening, a diagram of inner alchemy, a key to the invisible mechanics of consciousness. In this exploration, we will trace its origin to the temples of Mesopotamia, decode why Hermes guarded it as a secret of the initiates, and uncover how it was hijacked, misunderstood, and repurposed by modern institutions that no longer remember, or no longer want you to remember, what it truly represents. Because the Caduceus does not teach us how to cure the body, it teaches us how to transcend it. Long before the Caduceus appeared on hospital walls, it lived in temples, mystery schools, and initiation chambers. Its story does not begin in modern science, nor even in classical Greece, but in the deep archaic world, where priests, magicians, and kings believed that serpents did not crawl, they bridged worlds. The earliest traces of a double serpent staff appear in ancient Sumer and Akkad, where the god Ningishida, lord of the good tree, was depicted with entwined serpents rising beside a central pole. He was not a healer of bodies. He was a guardian of gates, a mediator between the living and the underworld, between mortals and divine realms. Already the message was clear. The serpent is the one who guides between states of being. Egypt inherited and transformed this idea. On temple walls at Saqqara and Luxor, serpents coil around staffs held by deities and priests, not as decoration, as technology. For the Egyptians, the serpent was the embodiment of energy in ascent, the force that moves from earth to sky, from instinct to illumination. The staff itself, straight, vertical, symbolized the axis mundi, the spine of the cosmos, the bridge between planes. To hold the staff was to hold the balance between realms. Then comes Hermes Trismegistus, whose symbol the Caduceus would become. Hermes was not merely a messenger. He was the keeper of a unified science, astronomy, philosophy, alchemy, and magic, woven into one worldview where matter was only slow spirit, and spirit was refined matter. He walked between worlds not physically, but cognitively, by mastering the laws behind appearances. The two serpents of his staff represent not health, but dual forces of the universe in symmetrical tension, solar and lunar, male and female, active and receptive, right and left, Ida and Pingala. The wings are not ornamental. They mark the point where duality resolves into flight of consciousness. The Greeks adopted Hermes' staff, but they also had another serpent staff, that of Asclepius, the true ancient symbol of bodily medicine. One snake, one rod, no wings. That is the medical emblem, not the Caduceus. And yet, somewhere in the modern world, the two were inverted, and a symbol of esoteric ascent was mislabeled a symbol of clinical repair. This is not an innocent mistake. It is a shift of paradigms. Where ancient systems saw illness as imbalance between forces, modern systems see only broken machinery. Where ancient adepts healed by aligning the inner current, modern medicine ignores the current entirely. Thus, the Caduceus was emptied, its meaning amputated. A cosmic diagram reduced to a corporate logo. It disappeared not because it was irrelevant, but because it was dangerous. A symbol that teaches that the body is not the limit, that consciousness can be trained, raised, weaponized, redeemed, is a threat to any structure built on obedience, materialism, and authority. And yet the symbol survived. On stone, in myth, in initiatory teachings, they preserved what institutions erased. That the Caduceus is a blueprint of inner transformation, not outer treatment. From here, to understand it fully, we must step inside the symbol itself, into the serpents, the staff, the wings, and read them not as pictures, but as encrypted instructions. To read the Caduceus properly, you must stop seeing it as an object and start seeing it as a process, a diagram of motion, not decoration. Every line, every curve, every intersection is an instruction about how consciousness evolves inside the human vessel. The ancients did not draw symbols for art. They drew operational maps. The staff at the center is the first key. It is the world axis, straight, vertical, unmoving. In the human body, this corresponds to the spinal column, the channel through which vital force ascends. In mythology, it is the tree, the pillar, the ladder to heaven, the axis mundi, connecting underworld, earth, and sky. It represents the unchanging self, the still point around which all polarity coils. Then come the two serpents, counter-spiraling in mirror symmetry. They are not chaotic. They rise with exquisite geometric precision, crossing at fixed intervals. This is the pattern of oscillation, the law that everything advances not in a straight line, but by the interplay of two opposing forces. In yoga, these are Ida and Pingala, the left and right currents of energy that wind around the spine. In alchemy, they are Sol and Luna, sulfur and mercury. In Hermeticism, they are active and passive, projective and receptive, will and imagination. The serpents are duality in motion, not in conflict, but in dynamic cooperation. Each point where the serpents intersect is a threshold, a gate of ignition. The ancients placed these crossings exactly where the major energy centers of the body reside. In other words, the Caduceus is a chakra map before the word chakra existed. Where the currents cross, consciousness stabilizes at a higher octave. The serpent does not climb by force. It climbs by alignment. Now consider the wings at the top. They are not ornamental triumph. They are the result of union. When polarity reaches equilibrium at the crown, duality dissolves and gives birth to flight, the liberation of perception from the confines of the body-mind. This is the true meaning of ascension, not leaving the body physically, but outgrowing identification with it. When the two become one, Hermes said, "You shall move the mountains of heaven," meaning you enter the realm where reality responds not to matter, but to mind. This is why the Caduceus was the emblem of messengers, magicians, and initiates, not doctors. For the one who awakens this force becomes a mediator between worlds, capable of carrying knowledge from the unseen into the seen. Pause here and consider if this symbol describes a technology of inner ascension. If it depicts how raw life force is transmuted into higher intelligence. What happens to a civilization when that knowledge is forgotten? When the staff is still drawn, but its meaning severed from its use? You get a world where the symbol remains, but the secret is amputated. A husk without a soul. This is why the Caduceus still works, not as ornament, but as memory. It still carries the full code, only waiting to be reread by those with eyes to see. And if the Caduceus encodes a process, Then the real question is, what does it tell us about our own untapped capacity? And why was this capacity concealed? Before answering, reflect on this. Symbols are never misused by accident. They are repurposed. If the Caduceus was stripped of its initiatory meaning, then someone or something benefited from that amputation. If the idea that this symbol encodes human potential resonates with you, stay with this journey. Subscribe and tell me in the comments. Did you already suspect that the Caduceus was never about medicine? Or is this the first time the symbol feels alive? If the Caduceus encodes the ascent of consciousness, then its modern interpretation as a medical logo is not simply an error. It is a downgrading of a spiritual technology into a material one. A symbol of awakening reduced to a symbol of maintenance. A map of transcendence repurposed into a brand of pharmaceuticals and industry. This pattern, the Hijacking of sacred symbols, is not unique to the Caduceus. It is everywhere once you know how to see it. Symbols of sovereignty become symbols of authority. Symbols of initiation become symbols of institutions. Symbols of inner mastery become property of external systems. Consider the serpent itself. In nearly every pre-Christian tradition, the serpent was a bringer of knowledge, vision, and transformation. In Sumer, Ningishida, the serpent of the tree. In Egypt, Wajet, serpent of protection and sovereignty. In Greece, the python at Delphi, source of prophecy. In India, Kundalini, the coiled serpent of awakening. But to strip a people of their inner power, you do not destroy the serpent. You invert its meaning. You make the serpent a symbol of sign instead of transformation. Fear replaces reverence. Submission replaces mastery. And the technology of the soul becomes taboo, forbidden, or ridiculed. The same inversion happened with the Caduceus. The true medical symbol, the rod of Asclepius, one serpent and no wings, faded from cultural memory. The Caduceus, the symbol of Hermetic ascent, alchemical gnosis, psychic and spiritual authority, was installed in its place. Modern institutions now brand themselves with a sigil meant originally for initiates, not patients. It is a silent proclamation of one thing. We hold the power of life and death, not you. Because if the Caduceus were understood in its original meaning, it would teach the opposite, that the power to transform, awaken, and govern one's destiny lies within the human being, not in systems outside of them. The serpents on the staff do not ask to be believed, they ask to be raised. And this is precisely what is dangerous to any world order built on dependence. A sovereign human, one who has balanced the inner currents, ignited the central axis, and unfolded the wings of consciousness, cannot be governed the same way. They do not bend to fear. They do not seek validation. They do not outsource authority. They become, in Hermetic language, self-legislating beings. So the symbol remains, but its instructions are buried. The meaning is erased, but the form persists, because the form still works subconsciously. Even drained of meaning, the nervous system recognizes the serpent. Something ancient in the blood remembers what the mind has been trained to forget. That is the paradox of archetypes. They cannot be fully killed, only misdirected. And that leaves us with a final, deeper question. If the Caduceus maps the path of inner ascent, what happens when a person consciously begins to walk that path today? What does it mean to reactivate what was deliberately put to sleep? And how does one begin to reverse the inversion? Not by arguing about the symbol, but by embodying the force it encodes. That is where this knowledge ceases to be historical and becomes operative. Because the Caduceus is not a relic, it is a set of instructions waiting to be enacted in the body, breath, and psyche of the living. A symbol is only powerful when it becomes practice. The Caduceus was not carved into stone so that the eye could look at it. It was carved so the soul could remember what to do. To reactivate what the Caduceus encodes, The work is not intellectual. It is somatic, energetic, and disciplinary. You do not believe the serpents into motion. You prepare the vessel so they begin to rise on their own. 1. Still the axis. The staff must become real. The central staff corresponds to one thing: inner stillness. A chaotic mind cannot anchor ascending force. It leaks it? Begin daily with 5 to 10 minutes of unmoving, upright sitting, spine straight, chin slightly tucked, breath slow and silent. The body becomes the staff. The spine becomes the world axis. You are teaching your nervous system to hold a vertical current without collapse. 2. Awaken the dual currents. Breathwork as serpent ignition. The serpents move with breath, not with effort. Ancient schools used alternate nostril breathing, slow diaphragmatic cycles, and retention to activate Ida Pingala, the twin currents. A simple practice. Inhale for 4 seconds through the left nostril. Exhale for 4 seconds through the right. Then switch. Do this for several cycles. You are simulating the serpent crossing the spine, threading duality into rhythm instead of noise. When the currents stabilize, thoughts quiet without force. Emotion obeys attention instead of hijacking it. Energy rises naturally. 3. Guard the thresholds. Energy cannot rise in a leaking life. Every crossing point on the Caduceus, every chakra gate, is blocked not by fate, but by habits. Anger blocks the heart. Shame blocks the root. Addiction blocks the sacral. Obsession blocks the brow. To raise energy, you do not force the serpent upward. You remove what suffocates it. Anything that drains attention is an archonic door. Anything that refines attention is a hermetic tool. 4. Align intention and will. The wings are earned, not given. The wings at the top are the proof of inner integration, not its cause. You do not meditate to feel spiritual. You meditate to become governable by truth instead of impulse. You do not breathe to relax. You breathe to polish the instrument through which revelation enters. This is why the Caduceus belong to initiates. Because once the wings open, once polarity dissolves into unity, the mind no longer obeys the world. It becomes creative instead of reactive, directive instead of conditioned. 5. Measure progress by behavior, not sensation. Do not look for fireworks. Look for sovereignty. Ask yourself, do I react less quickly? Do I waste less attention? Do desires feel optional rather than compulsory? Do I suffer with awareness instead of identification? If yes, the serpents are already rising. Reactivating the Caduceus within is not about joining a school or adopting a belief. It is about reversing the collapse of awareness that made the symbol necessary in the first place. Walk the path, and the symbol will begin to decode itself inside you. This is what the ancients understood. The Caduceus does not teach with words. It teaches by transformation. Every civilization that guarded the Caduceus believed the same thing. Humans are not finished beings. They are unfinished instruments. The serpents do not rise because a god selects them. They rise because a human prepares himself to receive what sleeps within. When you understand the Caduceus, you no longer see a medical brand. You see a verdict about the human condition. As above, so below must be achieved inside, not inherited from outside. The world wants you horizontal, reactive, emotional, divided against yourself. The symbol demands you vertical, observant, aligned, indivisible. The world benefits from your obedience. The Caduceus awakens your sovereignty. That is why it was repurposed. Not because it was irrelevant, but because it was too relevant, too revealing, too empowering, too precise. To remember what it means is to dethrone any system built on the assumption that you are spiritually inert. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. You begin to notice how many symbols around you are not inert, but sedated truths, asleep under new names. And you begin to sense that the true work of a seeker is not to collect knowledge, but to restore meaning to what was deliberately emptied. This staff is the spine. The serpents are the polar currents of life. The wings are the consequence of mastery. The symbol is not history, it is instruction. So, I leave you with a final question. If the Caduceus is a map, will you remain a spectator of it, or will you begin the ascent it describes? If this exploration awakens something in you, a memory, a recognition, a discomfort, then stay with this path. Subscribe to Labyrinth of the Veiled and tell me in the comments, do you believe this symbol was repurposed by accident or by design? The ancient staff has found your hand again. The rest is what you do with it.